I'm glad, Vicky. Good. Welcome back. Let's go to verse 16 at that point. For those who guide these people are leading them astray, and those who are guided by them are brought to confusion. So that's express a few things that I said here. So it was the main theme back in chapter 5 here in the Song of the Vineyard. In chapter 5, we did the Song on the Vineyard, where God prepared everything to produce grapes and so on, but they have produced bad grapes here. So the elders of Israel here are guilty of leading the nation astray. Leading the nation astray. And Jesus picked up that very motif in Matthew here. Okay, you remember? You Pharisees, scribes, and Sadducees. So that once again, it's a motif picked up by Jesus in the gospel, because he accuses the leaders in paragraph 137 to lead the nation astray here. It's a basic motif in biblical period and since the biblical period. I repeat, it's a basic motif. This is something that you should enjoy to know. Israel are often guilty of leading the common people astray. It's a basic motif in the biblical history, biblical period, and since the biblical period also. Both in biblical period and since the biblical period. So that's why it comes back to our carefulness as pastors and expositor not to repeat mistakes of Israel. And that's why we have the Old Testament to be conspicuous examples of these things, of what not to imitate. When a young man is graduated from seminary and takes the position in any kind of church, these are great responsibilities. Okay? And the flock also needs to learn how to absorb the sound, accept it, and make amends when the things are expounded upon, to respond accordingly. That's a great responsibility to teach the people and so on without leading them astray. So that's why we will be held accountable to greater responsibility. So in 16b, basically those who are guided by them are brought to confusion. So they that led them astray are destroyed, basically. And that's what we have in churches, sometimes lots of confusion and anarchy because the people are not taught what they should. Verse 17, therefore the Lord does not take pleasure in their young men. 17a, circle young men. These, the young men, it's those that are on military age. Military age. Many will die as part of the judgment. That's the cause of it. Many will die in the Assyrian invasion and so forth. In 17b, nor does he have pity on their orphans, circle orphans or widows. For every one of them is godless and an evildoer. Orphans and widows are the two classes that should receive help under the Mosaic law. God has a very special place for orphans and widows under the law of Moses and still today, and they have not looked after them the way they should have done. In 17b, everybody speaks foolishly. So all are evildoer and speak folly. All are evildoer and speak folly. That's exactly where you turn on any channel, repetition of the same thing, basically, from leaders around the world. Pride and so on and so forth. That's what we see in this world today. So once again, the refrain, as in the song, comes out in 17c. His hands stretch out, ready to strike again. And it's going to lead to the third wave. By the way, the judgment of the leaders of Israel was the second wave of judgment. You can imagine the waves of the sea. So then another wave is coming. The third one, the devastation of the land. The third wave of judgment, the devastation of the land, 18 to 21. For wickedness burns like fire, And it consumes briars and thorns, circle briars and thorns. It even sets the thicket of the forest aflame, and they roll upward in a column of smoke. But the fury of Jehovah of hosts, and the land is burnt up, and the people are like fuel for the fire. No man spares his brother, circle that. They slice off what is on the right hand, but still are hungry. And they eat what is on the left hand, but they are not satisfied. Each of them eats the flesh of his own arm. Circle Manasseh and Ephraim Manasseh, and together they are against Judah. In spite of all this, his anger does not turn away, and his hand is still stretched out. Okay? It does involve anarchy, and anarchy is the opposite of peace. It does involve anarchy, and anarchy is the opposite of peace. Circle in verse 18, wickedness. Wickedness in Hebrew, it's the word for rebellion. Rebellion, and it pictures a destruction from within. Earlier in our studies, it was a picture of destruction from without, the Assyrian, but now they're destroyed from within, because sin begets sin. And sin itself carries the seed of destruction.
You said wickedness is what?
Rebellion. And seed, basically sin rather, carries the seed in itself, the seed of destruction. I ask you to circle briars and thorns. These are the common people. I ask you to circle thickets and forest. That corresponds to the elders and the rulers of Israel. And that's the fire. Everybody, common people, elders and rulers, destroying themselves here. Verse 18, that's the destruction from within. You can see that even today. Unfortunately, even under the church, where people are divided, elders against elders, or whatever the case could be, and it does affect and permeate as well until the common people in the pews, and everybody suffers for these things. So these are not new things. Verse 19 here, by the fury of Jehovah the host, the land is burnt up, and the people are like fuel for the fire. Ultimately, the fire will come from without also. And the wrath of God will result in anarchy. Anarchy, it's no man's basically spare his own brother, divided from within. Concerning verse 20, it's a difficult one. Famine, so the products of the lands are destroyed. They slice off what is on the right, but still hungry. They eat what's on the left, not satisfied, to the point eating their own arm. If you want to take it literally, I leave that with you. I do. There was a siege in the city of Jerusalem. I think it was in AD 70. The siege was so long that they were basically finding dead people on the street with the organs and the liver missing and the heart, eaten by other people. In verse 21, Manasseh devours Ephraim, and Ephraim Manasseh, and vice versa. That's why it's named vice versa. What's the special thing? Do you know the special thing about these two tribes? You can see the extent of the anarchy right now. What?
Are they brothers?
They are, basically. Both are the sons of Joseph. Good answer. So these are the two closest tribes of Israel together, because both Manasseh and Ephraim are two sons of Joseph, and they devour each other. They are the most closely related tribes. Now they are at war with each other. But there is one thing that unites them. Read the verse. Manasseh devours Ephraim, and Ephraim Manasseh. And together they are against Judah. Wouch. What's unite them? That's the hatred of Judah and the house of David. It's not unlike the situation with the Arab people within themselves. This is exactly it. The children of Ishmael, called the Arab state. They fight together like dogs and cats all the time. They cannot have their own people. The two-state solution is not a solution because the Arab people cannot even get along among themselves. But they hold one thing in common. What is that? Hatred of Israel, anti-Semitism. So with the third wave of judgment, there are signs of no release. Why? No relief, not release. No relief. Why? Because his arm, Pharaoh, is still stretched out, ready to bang the table again in verse 21. Let's take one more. Point number 4, the judgment of the sinners. Chapter 10 is good. We'll finish this. We're good. We're going to have fun right now. 10, 1 to 4. Okay? Come with me. We circle. Woe to those who enact evil statutes, and to those who constantly record unjust decisions, so as to deprive, circle the needy of justice, and rob the poor of my people of their rights, so that widows may be their spoil. Circle, spoil, and that they may plunder the orphans. Now what will you do in the day of punishment, in the devastation which come from afar? To whom will you flee for help, and where will you leave your wealth? Nothing remains but to crouch among the captives or fall among the slain. In spite of all this, his anger does not turn away. His hand is still stretched out. This is the last wave of judgment. Is it a question, brother?
No, I was going to make a point.
Do it, bro. Do it. I don't want to keep you.
The point is, it's he. It's God. It's he. They're not talking about this is going to happen or this is going to happen. He's saying the Lord is going to make this happen. The Lord will do this and the Lord will do that.
It's an absolute
Judgment call.
Absolutely. It's going to happen. Good point. Verses 1 and 2, the emphasis is on unjust legality. In verses 1 and 2 of chapter 10, the emphasis is on unjust legality. The judges, the elders, and all these people, the leaders of Israel, declare unjust decrees, unjust laws. Can we see that today? I leave the answer to you. I leave the answer to you completely. Why do they do so? To exploit the poor and the widow. And they exploit the poor and the widow always under the mask of legality. While the Mosaic law protects these two groups. While the Mosaic law protects these three groups, the needy, the widows, and the orphan. So the crooked judges use these people basically as a special object for unjust legality. Now let's have a little bit of humor here, okay? You notice the phrase carefully. Let's pretend to speak Hebrew right now because I told you things here and we need to be faithful to that. Okay, so now we have fun here. So capital C here was the issue of Meher, Shalal, Hashbaz. And I ask you to circle Shalal and Hashbaz here. So I read to be carefully here. Olga taught me. Almanot shlalam ve'at yatohim yabazu. Okay? Shalal is your word shlalam, it's a verb to plunder. And hashbaz, yabazu, is the verb form to despise. So the fun is, close your eyes and picture Isaiah in the old city of Jerusalem, close to the spring of Gihon, in the valley of Hinnom, and he speaks Hebrew. And now when you say, Almanot shlalam, maher shalal, shalal, shlalam, ve'at yatohim, yabazu. Maher shalal has baz. So these guys switch the connection right now. That's why Maher Shalal Hasbaz, the second son of Isaiah, becomes a sign to Israel when he shoots these things in Hebrew.
You've lost me.
Yeah, there's no humor.
In the sentences, Maher Shalal Hasbaz. Almanot Shlalam. Same root of word. What does it mean, Maher Shalal Hasbaz? The spoil speeds, the prey hasten. So basically your doom is close. And now Almanot Shlalam Veyatohim Yabazu. Baz. He makes a verb of two parts of the name of his son. That comes the communication in their own language. It's as if I would have a play on word with the Nancy. And I would say Nancy who, which would become a verb of the meaning of her name. Just to give you a stupid example. Terry. Terry who? Terry, it's a noun, but Terry means to despise, let's say. And I make it, I will tarry you, or you will be tarried. Get it? So that's why your part C here, the outstretched arm, it's the, what was 8 something? I, Isaiah, and my 2 sons are a sign to Israel. Now Isaiah, all that we studied tonight, he delivered it slowly in Hebrew. I do again because I pretend to be Isaiah. I don't have enough beard right now. Almanot shlalam ve'at yatomim yabazu. So they are used with the language, and they probably look at his son, Maher Shalal Hasbaz, and he just said in November, my 2 sons and I are signs to the house of Israel. Beauty. Are you still lost?
Yeah. He's been doing that all along.
That's it. Now, in capital D, what will be the play upon word? She'ayashuv. I don't want to show you how. We're not there yet. And what will be capital E? The play on word will be with his name. Jehovah his salvation. You should be on your face rolling. We can move the table if you want, Ernie. To become holy roller, no?
No, I don't think so.
Not at that age. Okay? That's it. That's why I brought you up to speed. I know that sometimes it's normal, goes there and there because we're not used to that kind of teaching. But remember our first night of Isaiah. What did I say about Isaiah? You don't remember right now. I'm not challenging you. He is a city prophet with
Mastery.
beautiful. He masters the language. So that's why, listen to him. Almanot shlalam ve'at yatuhim yabazu. What is the name of your son? Maher Shalal Hasbaz. And he just explains, speed is, all of these things. And imagine these guys. What I just taught here, these guys would be blown away here. How come you know that kind of stuff? You're not going to teach that to them. That's their language. It's as if I would shoot a phrase, Farron, Harvey. That's it, eh? Bad sentences, including Farron somewhere, and at the end of the sentence, Harvey, but a different meaning, or Harvey Hill, or something. You would say, just said my name, these guys. And he just said the name of his son, shown for judgment against them. Yeah, it's fun. This is our first night. You have enough. We close. Okay, 8 to 8:15, 8:20. We have enough. What?
The same thing, Garrickology, Ernieology, kind of.
That's